Listen, everyone has their own preference, okay? And I know that there are some people that like to use the settings I've recommended for OLED Motion Pro without black frame insertion. And if you enjoy eye searing brightness, you're going to be on heaven, because I'm going to show you how you can get the absolute brightest HDR possible. And this is the real deal. We're talking about native HDR, okay? This is not SDR to HDR trick, none of that. And this is going to work for all TVs and monitors, okay? And of course, depending on the TV and the monitor, you're gonna be tweaking the settings a little bit. So I'm going to explain you how to do that. And it's gonna work on the PC only, because we're taking advantage of the new Lilium HDR shaders, okay? But if you are going to use the settings I'm going to share with you here without black frame insertion, use protection, okay? Because we are about to release some serious brightness, okay? Let me show you. I'm going to do this. I'm gonna go step by step on the brightness, and hopefully my camera can capture the difference here. Look, let me get this out of the way so you can see this brightness here. I'm going to change from HGIG to dynamic tone mapping, okay? Everyone knows that's brighter, no secrets. But now I'm going to do this. Again, before, after. Before, after, okay? And on top of that, if you want to really destroy your eyes, come here and turn it off, okay? Boom! This is just like, holy crap. I cannot look at that. So this is what we need. We need this level of brightness so we can use OLED Motion Pro High. So the reason why I need to learn how to get this result is because I want to use black frame insertion. So I want this brightness for the right reasons. Okay? But of course, there's no wrong or right reasons. You just, use whatever you prefer, whatever you like the most. So let me show you what I'm doing here. Take a look at the graph. This is the game by default. I have the in-game native HDR peak brightness slider max out, and the max CLL is 1405. Okay? So what I'm doing with this new HDR shaders on Reshade, I am doing tone mapping. Okay? But I am doing a specific kind of tone mapping. So what I'm doing is I'm reducing the maximum peak brightness and I am lifting the midtones. Take a look at this. Boom! You see? I am reducing this peak brightness, and at the same time I am lifting the midtones as much as possible before starting to get clipping and the picture looking nasty. Okay? So this is as much as you can do. And I'll show you how to get that result. Now, on top of that, for OLED Motion Pro, I am increasing the visibility near black because OLED Motion Pro makes the near black darker. Okay, it crushes the blacks a little bit. It crushes the black, so we need more visibility. And that's what I'm doing here with this shader. I'm gonna show you. This is what I'm doing. So the reference is this line, and I am increasing the visibility near black for black frame insertion. So if you are not going to use black frame insertion, you just want the eye searing brightness, all you have to do is just don't use this one. So use the brightness boosting without that near black adjustment. Okay, so let me explain you. This is very, very, very simple. Very simple. Let me show you. So we come here to this link in the description of the video explaining you how to install Reshade, how to download the Lilium shaders. So check that video out. I already explained how to do that. So here's what we're gonna do. We're going to use this Lilium tone mapping shader and the Lilium HDR analysis to understand what's going on. And then what we are going to use is this tone mapping method called BT2390. Okay, so when we select that BT2390, we see here the options that we have available. BT2390, we're going to select this processing mode RGB. Okay, this is my recommended one. And then we're going to change this knee factor. We're going to lower that knee factor from the default 1.5 down to 60. So now in my testing, 0.58 knee factor, you cannot go lower than that. If you go lower than that, you mess everything up. So that's as low as you can go. So when you lower that, you're increasing the brightness of the mid-tones. Okay, you're lifting EOTF tracking. Okay, this is not accurate. This is just to get more brightness because we are going to kill that brightness with OLED Motion Pro. That's why I need to do that. So basically the picture looks like there is no black frame insertion. That's the goal. And then we just keep this knee minus at 0.5. So now another interesting thing that we have available with this tone mapping is that we can fix the black level rays with a very high level of precision. And I'm going to show you that. And of course, to get this tone mapping doing exactly what you want, what you have to do is to select here this maximum tone mapping brightness. This is going to be the max CLL of the game, which is 1405 nits. So now if you are using a display like the LG G3, you don't have to do tone mapping at all. Okay, because the G3 can do HDIG with that brightness, no problem. So it depends on the display, of course, but if your display is below 1500 nits and you have the HDIG option, then you want to do tone mapping. Or if you just want to have a specific max CLL based on the tone mapping that your display is doing. Because for example, maybe you have an LG Ultra Gear 240 Hz OLED, and for some reason your display is doing tone mapping with a 600 nits target on this game for some reason, then you want to select here 600. Okay, in this case what I am doing is I am lowering this target brightness because I want max CLL 525, because I am going to use dynamic tone mapping for OLED Motion Pro, and I am going to do that tone mapping with 525 target. Okay, this is specifically. So now I explain you how these settings work. I adjusted these settings specifically for my LG C1 OLED, specifically for OLED Motion Pro High. So let me show you the settings I am using on the TV, and then I'm going to explain you specifically how to fix the minor black level rays that we have in this game, and explain you how we can increase the visibility near black without losing the zero blacks. Okay, so what I'm doing here is 1113 111, and I am selecting mastering pick max CLL 540. This works with dynamic tone mapping and with tone mapping off. So I'm using dynamic tone mapping for black frame insertion to get as much brightness as possible. So now let me show you on the menu. Let me go to the main menu to show you this more easily, because this game has a minor black level raise that we have to fix, and I'm going to show you how to fix that using this tone mapping. This is absolutely amazing. You see here, source black point in nits and target black point in nits. Okay, so if the source black point is not 0, that's what we're gonna type in here, and then the target is gonna be 0. We want 0 nits. We want absolute perfect blacks. So now I already tweak this value, but you don't see it because the black level raise that this game has is lower than 0.001. Okay, so what I did is I type in the value and you don't see it, but it is actually working. So take a look at this minimum CLL. Let me make sure you can see that. Okay, I move the camera so you make sure that you can see this minimum CLL. So right now it says 0 because I fixed it already, but if I come here to this source black point and I type in 0, enter, look at this. See how that changed? Now minimum CLL is 0.000261. Okay, now when you come here, you type in 0.000261, it actually works. Boom, and it fixes that black level raise, because now I am telling this tone mapping that the source black point is that and the target I want is 0, and it does work. I see here how that lowers the black level. Take a look at the black level. I'm going to go before and after. Take a look at this. See? Before, after, before, after. Let me increase the size of this graph so you can see it better. Look at this. Before, after, before, after. So it is a minor black level raise, but this is working to fix that black level raise. So now that we know that we have 0 nits, we have perfect blacks, now we can use this PD8003 curved levels shader to get more visibility near black. So take a look at the graph, before, after. You see, what I am doing is I am lifting the visibility near black, but I still have perfect blacks. Look at this. It is still touching the 0, and you can see it here too. The minimum CLL is 0. Before, after, you see? I still have perfect blacks. So I have perfect blacks, I have more visibility near black, so I can use OLED Motion Pro, and it just looks fantastic. And it does look better than the SDR HDR trick. Finally, I was able to beat the SDR HDR trick with these settings. And the reason why this looks better than the SDR HDR trick is because the colors look more saturated. Let's take a look at the game colors. Let's take a look at this. Let's load the game again. Let's take a look at the colors, because this game is actually more colorful with native HDR. So if you compare Auto HDR or the SDR HDR trick, you compare that with the native HDR, you will see that the native HDR looks more colorful, and actually we can see it here with the numbers. Let me reduce the size of this thing. I think I made it too big. Let me reduce the size of this graph. This is a brightness histogram. Okay. Let me show you that. If we come here, I find this spot that is very colorful. If we come here, we see here DCI-P3 9%, BT2020 3%. Okay, so it is actually pushing the colors beyond Rec 709. This is native HDR, and it looks very good. So now, what if you don't want to use OLED Motion Pro for this game, and what if you just want to get the best, native HDR picture quality possible for this game using this LG OLEDs. Okay, I'm going to give you my recommendation for that too. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna use these settings instead. Let me turn off OLED Motion Pro and let me change the settings here, and I will explain you what is the tone mapping that I would recommend. So this is eye searing. Too bright. There are some people, they like that. They wanted eye searing. So I'm going to use HGIG, and I'm going to show you the best settings in my opinion. So now, see, is this one. Okay, so here's what I did here. To go back and forth between these tone mapping options, what I did is I copied and I created a copy. I created a copy of this Lilium HDR tone mapping. So you see here that I have two. I have Lilium HDR tone mapping 1 and Lilium HDR tone mapping 2. You can create as much as you want. All you have to do is go to the shaders folder and just right click on that Lilium's tone mapping, right click on that, copy that somewhere else, change the name and copy that back, and then open the game again, and you will see you have two. That's what I did to have two settings already set up. So you see, the option that I recommend for native HDR on this game specifically, and for many games actually, is use dice. Dice is working very nice, especially when the entire picture doesn't look blown out, when you are only getting clipping on the highlights. So what I'm using here is this tone mapping method called dice, and then for dice we have the options. We have these options here: shoulder start in percentage, and we have the processing mode and the processing color space. So now for dice, I am using 800 as a target because I want max CLL to be 800 nits, and that's what I am getting here. So now the way that I set up this dice was by increasing this shoulder start percentage. So what is this shoulder start percentage? When you put the mouse on top of that, it tells you that this is going to set where the brightness compression will start. So the brightness compression, that the highlights need to be compressed. So when is that going to start? And it tells you, for example, if you have 1000 nits and you have here 50%, that means that the brightness compression is going to start at 500 nits. Okay? So in this case, what I did to make sure this is a good value is I start increasing this percentage and look at the max CLL. So for example, 71 was the maximum, and I just lowered it to 70 just in case. So when I go over 71 here, I no longer have max CLL 800. I have max CLL 803, 804. So what I did is I said, okay, 72 is like the limit, 71, 72 is the limit. So I'm going to lower it to 70 just in case, so I get below 800 for the max CLL, so I can use HGIG for native HDR, and that is the best looking HDR. And the best thing about this dice tone mapping is that it doesn't change the mid-tones at all. All this is doing, look, all this is doing, it is changing. Let me increase the size of this thing. Okay, take a look at this graph. All this is doing is just tone mapping here, this last part. So we go from 1404 nits down to 797. Okay, that's all this is doing. So this is the most, I'm not going to say the most accurate, because if you look at the highlight details, you might see that if the game is trying to push like 4000 nits, like I showed Resident Evil Village, you might see that there are some very small highlight details that you might be missing. But a game like this that is just 1400 nits, this is working like a charm. Okay, so this is preserving the creator's intent the best. Okay, although I have to say that the creator's intent is kind of messed up because there is a minor black level ray. So what do you have to do if you want to enjoy HDR and use this dice option? You have to lower the black level of your TV. So use, on these LG OLEDs, use fine-tuned dark areas -5. Okay, that's going to fix that minor black level rays. It's gonna give you perfect blacks and it's gonna look the best. Or alternatively, you can use a screen brightness 49, but I recommend fine-tuned dark areas -5 because fine-tuned dark area settings is going to affect up to 30% signal level. Actually, based on my testing, it's like 27% signal level. So beyond that, it doesn't affect the picture, so you don't lose brightness of the mid-tones. You only reduce that grayscale near black, and it crushes that minor black level rays that we have on this game. So that's it. There you go. That's how you can push as much brightness as possible. Depending on your display, of course, you're going to use a specific settings to get, to get exactly the max CLL that you need for your specific display. Maybe your display is crushing blacks a little bit. If that's the case, then you might come here and select, the source black point and then the target black point and increase it maybe a little bit. You have to be very careful so you don't lose the perfect blacks. Maybe that's gonna lose the perfect blacks anyway. I would need to test that. But with these options, if you play around with these options now, you are definitely going to learn how to get the absolute best HDR possible and tweak the HDR the way you like it. If you wanted more colorful, you can get it more colorful here. If you wanted brighter, you can get it brighter. Okay? If the HDR is broken, you can fix it. If you have black level rays, you can crush that. If you're crushing blacks, you can get more visibility in your black. If you want to use dynamic tone mapping or tone mapping off or HDIG, anything you want to use, or depending on your display, you can fix it now. So I cannot thank enough this man, Lilium. The work that he has done is absolutely amazing. This is so important for HDR gaming right now. I mean, there's nothing that I know of that is affecting HDR gaming that is having a bigger impact on HDR gaming on the PC than these shaders, and even for consoles, because this HDR analysis tool actually works for consoles. You just need a PC to analyze it, but it works. So check out the Gaming Tech video about that. He kind of explained how to do that. And also check out JDSP YouTube channel. He explained, he was actually who originally showed this shaders. I didn't know about this. I learned it from JDSP YouTube channel, so check him out too. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. The only thing that I'm really waiting for to really be able to tell that the near black is absolutely perfect is Lilium told me actually on the comment sections that he has. I asked him, hey, do you have the option to show a near black test pattern that is responding to the native HDR, so I can see exactly what the problem is. So I make sure that I have the near black absolutely perfect. And he told me that yes, that's there already. He just needs to work on making it expose that near black test pattern, or those test patterns that this HDR analysis tool is using. He just needs to expose that on a user-friendly way. So that's something that I'm really waiting for, because as soon as I have a test pattern here, then I can tweak the TV settings. You can tweak the display settings and know what's going on. Because when you fix the TV settings, this graph is not gonna change. So you need a test pattern to know That's the only thing that we are missing here. We need that relationship between the display settings and the game. Okay, and we cannot get that relationship with this graph because this graph is not gonna change if I lower the black level of my TV or if I lower fine-tune dark areas. I need a test pattern. That's the only thing we are missing. Aside from that, this is absolutely amazing and I cannot recommend it enough. If you are on a PC and you have an HDR display, it doesn't matter if it's an LG OLED, Samsung QD OLED, an LCD, mini LED, whatever you have, this is a must for the PC. Absolutely amazing. So let me know your thoughts and opinions and if you have any questions.